Often, people over the age of 35 or 40 face the loss of their molars. This is a problem that rarely gets the attention it deserves. Because of this, after some time, they start losing their front teeth, teeth that were completely healthy. It may seem like they're saving money in the short term, but they end up losing all their teeth within 7 to 10 years. However, there is a way to restore your molars quickly, affordably, and without implants. This method will help you keep your own teeth for at least another 15 to 20 years. Now I'll explain why the absence of molars is dangerous, why it negatively affects your front teeth, and how it can make you look 20 years older. What are molars? Most often, these are our last 3 or 4 teeth on one side and the same on the other side. That is, evolutionarily, these teeth, even if you look at their structure, have what we might call pads, platforms, or surfaces that are specifically designed for chewing and grinding food. The front teeth, on the other hand, are naturally and evolutionarily designed for biting off, breaking, or tearing food. What are the consequences of missing molars? All the chewing load, instinctively or unconsciously, of course, shifts to the front teeth. And over time, the gum begins to recede, the tooth becomes exposed, starts to loosen, and the patient may lose completely healthy front teeth. That's why it's important for the patient to replace missing molars as soon as possible. In addition to the fact that, as I mentioned, there is a heavy load on the front teeth, which are not meant for this, we can actually lose them. There are also changes happening to our antagonist teeth. That is, these are the teeth that are supposed to come into contact with each other, meaning the upper and lower teeth. And the tooth that no longer has this support actually starts to move forward. I think many patients have noticed this in themselves, because by nature, the tooth needs some kind of support. Let's say you have some of your chewing teeth on one side, you have all your teeth, but on the other side, you're missing teeth. And it might seem like, well, I'll just chew on the other side. But it's the same situation here. The load is distributed unevenly, and sooner or later you will lose the teeth you still have, even the chewing ones. And uneven chewing on one side leads not only to changes in the teeth and bite, it also, of course, causes changes in the temporomandibular joint itself. That is, it significantly affects the muscles of the maxillofacial system. So there will be consequences, even if we're missing as few as 3 teeth. And since this puts extra stress on our joint, of course, the temporomandibular joint may start to bother you, hurt, crack, or even creak. Speaking of consequences, I think each of you has heard about this, but this is truly the most typical example. We don't have any chewing teeth, and of course, food is not chewed properly, and the food bolus or food that enters the stomach naturally starts to cause problems for the stomach itself. So how can you restore your chewing teeth quickly and, most importantly, inexpensively and even without implants? Very often, patients who have this kind of defect are not aware of it, and they think that implants are the only solution. In reality, there is a solution, and that solution is called partial removable dentures. Right now, we are looking at an example involving the upper jaw. We can see that our patient has front teeth. You can see even these notches here show it clearly. It fits exactly onto his front teeth. There's even a clasp or hook here that attaches to his existing tooth, and the patient doesn't have any chewing teeth. With this kind of removable, partially removable denture, we can address the issue of chewing function or the lack of chewing teeth. This is one example of a partial removable denture. There are also so-called partial removable dentures, called buccal dentures. It's the same here. These are also upper dentures. All of these are for the upper jaw. They are for the upper jaw. Here, just the same, as you can see, the patient has front teeth. There are these kinds of hooks and clasps that hold this denture in place. Here are our chewing teeth, ready for use, and the patient can chew comfortably with them. I can even show you a rather rare example. But again, as you can see, this is also for the upper Jawa unilateral denture like this. The patient has no chewing teeth, that is, on one side of the upper jaw. On the other side, there is one tooth missing. And here too, the patient was given this kind of denture actually. This is quite an old design by our clinic standards, but nevertheless, this option also exist. So we replace the chewing teeth on one side and even such a small defector single tooth on the other side.
What is the difference between these two dentures, and which one is better?
Two dentures for the upper jaw, so both this one and this one are for the upper jaw, actually quite different. But the difference is that this denture is made of acrylic, and its base serves a kind of reinforcing function. That is, it is precisely this base that gives the denture its strength and stability. And this denture here is called a clasp or partial denture, and because it uses this kind of metal, we can remove the large base of the other denture and make it much smaller. And of course, with this kind of denture, the patient can feel taste and temperature. If a patient puts on this kind of denture, it covers their entire upper palate, right? So here it's more open and it's much easier to get used to this kind of denture, absolutely. Nowadays, they also make so-called acetal clasp dentures, where instead of metal, a special white plastic is used very strong and also shaped as a small arch. So if you compare the volume, of course, this one is smaller. Again, I want to say that with these adaptation, taste, and temperature sensations are better perceived by the patient. These types of prosthetics are, of course, a compromise. That's exactly their purpose. So you shouldn't write them off. Implantation is a modern and more convenient solution, of course. And with these kinds of dentures, it can be, well, somewhat uncomfortable to wear, and you do need to get used to them. Nevertheless, the sooner you restore your chewing function by any of these methods, whether it's implantation or with these partial removable dentures, the better.
Which one attaches better? Because I've heard that a vacuum is needed. Upper dentures are held in place by vacuum, and it seems like the left acrylic one has a better vacuum.
In reality, a vacuum is certainly needed, but with these types of dentures, we only need these supporting teeth. The denture is made in such a way, everything is calculated, so that attaching it to these supporting teeth is enough for us. But with this denture, it also additionally creates this vacuum zone, or more precisely, a valve zone. But we don't really rely on that. Our goal is for them to be properly and securely attached to our supporting teeth, and then it will stay in place and not fall out. The second method for restoring chewing teeth is implantation. If we talk about the disadvantages of implantation, first and foremost, it's the cost and of course the time required. We need time for the implants to integrate and for the construction to be made. But if we talk about the advantages, they usually outweigh almost all the disadvantages. It's convenient. That is, you will never feel the implants, you will never feel this construction.
So in this situation, we have only two solutions, either these types of dentures or an implant.
That's absolutely right, yes. It's just that with this option, there are three types of materials to choose from, right? As I mentioned, either acrylic or a metal framework buccal denture or an acetal framework buccal denture. All three options are simply different materials or manufacturing technologies. And the second option, or rather the second method, is implantation. So what exactly makes this type of prosthetics attractive if we compare it to implantation? The main advantage, of course, is speed. Such a denture can be made in, well, a maximum of 2 weeks. Another advantage is that there's no need for surgical intervention like implantation. And its main advantage is, without a doubt, the price. If you compare it to implantation, it is, of course, several times cheaper. The decision is entirely up to you. Don't be embarrassed to use dental prostheses. There's nothing shameful about it. On the contrary, this way you can preserve your teeth longer and keep your smile shining. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave your comments. Take care of yourself and your loved one.